Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Vocal revolution. Change the world with your voice.
So welcome everyone to the Vocal Revolution. This is where we talk about the power of our voices to change the world personally and collectively. And I just want to thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are watching or listening today. I really appreciate you spending your time with us, and it's going to be time really well spent, especially if you've ever had any questions about public speaking. Because research shows that public speaking is our number one fear. That's actually above death, and incredible. And my very special guest today, Elaine Powell, is perfectly positioned to tell us about how we can create a positive mindset and overcome some of those very powerful fears. She's an amazing dynamic speaker who has got this incredible ability to connect and inspire and engage audiences, leaving them feeling that anything is possible. As the CEO of MindSpeak Academy, she's dedicated to equipping individuals and organizations with the mindset and skills that they need to be masterful in their presentation, storytelling, and leadership. Over the last 12 years, Elaine has spoken at 120 events. She's trained 30,000 people, delivered over 600 workshops in the art of peak performance and public speaking. She's also curated a TEDx event in London for 3 years, and she's a mentor for the Cherie Blair Foundation. So thank you so much, Elaine. We're so lucky to have you here today. Thank you so much for, everyone can hear, you're extremely busy, so we're really grateful for you to share your time with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for inviting me to share with your audience. I feel very privileged to have been asked.
Oh, it's just an honor. And I mean, I've had the pleasure of coming to some of your workshops and programs and been extremely enriched. And I know everyone listening is going to be by your amazing wisdom and insights that you share and your commitment to helping people feel confident and speak from their truth. So,
Yeah.
And I know you've had an amazing journey yourself to get to that place. So I wondered if you'd like to share a bit about your story. What got you to this place of empowering people with their voices, and how did you find yours?
Yeah, wow. Where do I start that's relevant for the audience? So I think what's relevant was that it was around 2005. I was very restless in the work I was doing. I was working with young offenders with behavior issues, and I loved working there. I really loved about mindset because we did a lot of cognitive behavior therapy and just really working on improving their mindset. So that was kind of my love was partly there. But I went traveling around the world for a whole year, went to 18 countries. And then when I came back, it really just wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to say when, I wanted to say where, but I really didn't know what I was going to do next. Something where I didn't have to study for 5 or 6 years to become a psychologist. So I just went in the search of what shall I do next? And I remember I was looking at network marketing, and I went to an event, and it was about personal development, which I really, really love personal development. And I always think everyone should, embrace it as much as they can in their life. And I remember the gentleman at the front of the room, not only was he dashing, which was a benefit, but I just felt so inspired with everything he was sharing. And I sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to be at the front of the room. Never spoken before publicly. And I spoke to him afterwards and I joined. And within about 2 weeks, I was delivering at the front of the room.
Wow.
Scary, but it was only until about 25, 30 people. So it wasn't too bad. And then at some point, he came to me, I think it was like 5 weeks later, and he said, Elaine, we love your enthusiasm, but we're just finding that when you present, we're not having as many people sign up. And I felt devastated. I just felt, oh my gosh, let me stop now. And I really was going to stop. And they said, no. Just learn how to deliver. Just go and get some training. And I thought, okay. And so he guided me to Toastmasters. and I went to my local Toastmasters, which is an amateur speaking club around the world, and wet my feet there. And that was my first dive into learning how to do public speaking. And I really do believe that when you set out on a path and you have an intention, life will put people, situations, circumstances in your way to help you along the path. And so I went to lunch with a new acquaintance, and he told me about a charity that goes into schools doing public speaking. So Katie, I was like, oh my gosh, I've worked with young offenders. I love public speaking, and I was winning Toastmaster competitions. So I'm like, oh, what an amazing fit. Plus, I think in one day I was earning more than I did in a whole week. So I was like, oh yes. So I jumped into delivering public speaking in schools for 15-year-olds, which is a really great age to train. And so, yeah, I did that for a few years, and then I kind of went into a bit of a challenging time where the work started to dry up. And I think that's what happens when you rely on somebody else to give you work, especially as an associate trainer. So I put myself in a very vulnerable situation where I hadn't created my own work. And then I found out I couldn't have finances. I couldn't pay my mortgage, so it was affecting my finances. Then I found out that I couldn't have children. And then that was just a real tailspin for me for about 6 months, feeling really, really depressed, just wanted to kind of give up on life generally. And I'm really glad I went through it, Katie, because I never really had that much empathy for people who were finding it hard to deal with life. I was always like, come on, sort yourself out. Don't worry. Things will change. And I can see that when sometimes you're in that dark space, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Even though you know it's there, you can't see it. So, it took me a little while to come out of that. But I did a personal development course, which was a game changer for me. I took responsibility for my life fully, for everything that happened and everything that I wanted to happen in the future. And then I went out and started creating my own work, and hence 20,000 people, TEDx curator, and my MindSpeak Academy, and just haven't looked back. But I think taking full responsibility and it was a hard pill to swallow. If I've created this life right now, I cried for a little while. I was like, oh, you created this life. I don't like it so much. And it's like, okay, you're that powerful. If you can take full responsibility, so what do you want to create? You're a creator. You've created this, so go and create something else. And that's what I did.
Amazing. Wow. Already so many pearls of wisdom in there and insight. Thank you for sharing your story so generously and giving us that background of how you transformed and transforming through the power of your own creativity, and that you gained through your own struggles empathy with others, which is so important, isn't it? Especially if we're training people, and we have to be sensitive to the fact that we all go through our trials and tribulations, and that they can be a source of great creativity for us when we find the right tools, and as you say, when we get the responsibility we take that responsibility to create something new. And speaking of that empathy for others, like, you've probably witnessed some incredible transformations in people, it sounds like, of all ages, whether it's young people or adults training with you. Do you have some of your favorite stories of transformation that you've seen that you'd like to share? I'm sure there's many, but just what are your favorite few?
Yeah. So one was with a young person, and the workshops are like an all-day workshop, year 10. There was around 25 young people in the workshop, and I have them all day. And the intention is for them to deliver a 2-minute speech at the end of the workshop without any notes. So I started the day, and throughout the day, they stand up, whether individually or in groups, to speak, impromptu and various things. And there was this young boy, and every time I asked him to speak, he refused. And one was just like a simple introduction. And then on the second session, he was crying, and he ran out of the room. And then I went out and had a word with him, but he didn't open up to me. And then at lunchtime, he came to me and he said, I'm finding this really hard. I've had a stutter. And ever since, going to school, I've always been bullied. And I just find it really embarrassing. And I just find it really vulnerable. So obviously, I consoled him and I said, look, at the end of the day, if you don't want to deliver your speech, that's fine. Just stay in the workshop. You're going to learn so much. And if at the end of the time you feel that you can deliver it, then go for it. And he's like, okay. So he came back and everyone near the last hour of the session was going up individually and sharing their story. And I was looking at him and it was like, it's fine. And then we came to like the last three people and then he put his hand up and I thought, oh my gosh. And then he walked to the front of the room. He had his book in his hand, which I don't usually allow notes, but I thought I'm not going to say anything. And he took his book and he threw it to the side of the room and he said, enough is enough. And then he told his story about how he's been bullied his whole life and he's not putting up with it anymore. He has a voice and he has things to say. And then he shared a story of a pilot in the Air Force who had gone through trials and tribulations and he didn't give up either. And so I felt like Katie, I felt like a proud mother. I was clucking at the side of the room.
Oh, I can imagine.
I was definitely crying. And so many of his school peers were crying as well. And it was just so much support for him. But I was just so proud.
Wow. That's an amazing story. And that's something, there's some really key kind of archetypal moments that I think probably many of us can relate to in that story. That kind of transformation of going from feeling very, very fearful and that we've had genuine trials and traumas that have caused us to become fearful. But there's this moment of decision, isn't there, where if we stay in the room and we stay with it and we, rather than running from it, we get to the point where we just go, right, I'm just going to throw away my safety net and just do this. And having the right support, you obviously gave him that right support and that very encouraging, non-pressurized environment for him to learn and to grow and to find his greatness in that moment, which is incredible.
Yeah. And then the next year he went on to be head boy.
Oh, wow.
Another bit of icing on the cake.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, I have like adult stories as well. I don't know if you want me to tell you another one, like an adult one.
Yeah, I'd love. Yes, please.
This was she wasn't really. I mean, now I predominantly work with business owners and entrepreneurs and speakers, but I still go into the corporate space and I do workshops. But this woman came to me sort of individually, and she was a teacher, and really ambitious teacher. And every time she was in the senior, well, she wasn't. It was like a staff meeting, or she was in she primary school. Her year meeting when she was due to stand up and deliver. She would always refuse. She would literally cry and she just couldn't do it. So we worked sort of one-to-one on her confidence, on her mindset, and then obviously on a presentation. And then I remember she rang me up and she was crying because she stood up and she delivered a presentation just in that team meeting. Because for her, she kept on seeing people pass over her in terms of going into the senior leadership because she wasn't able to speak up and speak out. And that's important if you want to be, in the senior leadership team, or you want to be a deputy head. You have to stand up and speak at assemblies, to teams. So it was really important to her that she sort of work through this. And then when she rang me up and she was crying because she did it. And after that, she just flew. Now she's a deputy head of a primary school here in London. So yeah, I think it's in a way, it's just helping people like a gentle, you could do it, and just giving them some skill set, because they do say, success is 80% mindset and only 20% skills. And I say I can teach you skills super, super easy. It's really easy. It's actually quite easy also to write a presentation.
Yes.
But the delivering it, you have to get past this, and this is the thing that holds people back.
Yes, it's those very powerful fears that we have, isn't it? And what would you say are some of the Yeah, talking of those inhibitions, what do you think are some of the most inhibiting, or you must see them come up time and time again, these stories that we tell ourselves, isn't it? What do you see inhibiting people, and what are your tips for getting over those?
Yeah. So one that comes up again and again is obviously confidence. They don't feel confident in themselves or their ability or engage in an audience. Um, and I would say confidence is a strange one, because for me it's not a skill, it's a way of being.
Mm,
And I do ask people, who feels that they're not confident, and people put their hands up, and I say, okay, keep your hands up if you're not confident at home or with your friends. And obviously they put their hands down. That's like, okay, so you want to get, first and foremost, you are confident. It's just possibly when you put yourself in certain situations, you're not confident. That's okay. I'm not confident bungee jumping because I haven't done it. But I'm confident skydiving because I've done it a few times. But I wasn't comfortable the first time. So I think um, having people recognize it's actually okay to not feel confident when you're doing something for the first time. It's the first time, or maybe the second or the third. But I would say, public speaking is what we call the on the court sport. Just like playing tennis, you will never get better at tennis until you do it.
yes.
And it's in the playing the tennis where you'll learn, oh, that doesn't work. I can't, in order to do a, forearm or what have you, I have to have the racket here. You have to have feedback on what to do and how to position it. And it's the same with public speaking. So, my first couple of times when I was at Toastmasters, they count your ums and ers. And my first one, I had 50, Katie. 50. That says every other word was because I wasn't confident and I was very nervous, and I was speaking actually way too fast because my heart was pumping. But look at me now.
Yes.
And that's just because I've done it again and again. I've trained. I think that's a big thing people don't do. They don't train themselves in, it's an art form.
Yes.
And I really want to re-educate people. It's just like being an actor. You wouldn't just go and deliver a play and you haven't been trained. Most people don't. And it's the same with public speaking. But time and time again, I see that people just going out speaking because they can speak. Just because you speak doesn't make you a speaker. So I think knowing that it's okay to not feel confident, but not to entertain that thought, because the more you say it, the more your body's going to react to, I'm not confident. You'll hunch over because your body's listening to your voice, your words, your mind's listening to it. And it's just really listening to your language you're saying to yourself. I'm a big one about language, how it creates our whole reality. And change the word. Don't say I'm not confident. Say I'm going to gain mastery in this skill. Okay, well, mastery takes time and it takes practice. So that's one of the first ones that comes up. I'll give you a little break just in case you want to jump in.
Oh, well, that's a lot of insight there. Yeah, and I think you're right. Confidence is so primal, and people sense of it. And I think one big breakthrough I had around it was when I realized that when you take the Latin word apart, it just means with faith. And so it doesn't mean that you know everything. It doesn't mean you've got everything stitched up. It just means that you go into a situation with faith that you can get
Mm,
something good from it. So
mm,
it's actually having the faith to go into the unknown and to try something new, as you say, and to allow yourself the learning process of that. And that really helped me phenomenally around confidence and realizing that it's just having faith. Have faith in yourself, have faith in the process, wherever you are, as you say, and to allow yourself to be where you are in the process. If you're just at the beginning, then you have to have that faith. Well, I'm going to learn. I give myself permission to learn. Of course, I will make mistakes along the way. That's any learning process. But yeah, it's a valuable process, isn't it? And having faith in ourselves. And I can see that you're really helping people do that. You're giving them both the skills and the training, but also that really important mindset work, as you say, of unpackaging this crazy stuff that can go on in between our ears.
yeah. Yeah. And you said, something really important, which is what leads into the kind of questioning their confidence. And I'll just finish off with something else that sprung to mind, that I feel that as human beings, the growth is actually in the stretch. So coming outside your comfort zone, trying something new, speaking to a bigger audience, it's not going to feel comfortable. And our job is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you can be comfortable being uncomfortable is part of that growth and expansion. It's normal that you're going to feel a bit, and then you'll find your feet. But also, which ties into the second thing I was going to say, is that fear of failure really, really keeps people not doing it, or being reluctant to do it. The fear of not looking good, or looking bad, or rejection from the audience. All of that comes up with, what if it's not perfect? Which is another one that comes up. That's the third one, perfectionism.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes people have had painful experiences of being rejected, or, and I think we have a very primal instinct that says, stay in the tribe, don't put your head up, stay down, because it might be dangerous if you do. So you have to sometimes, as you say, go against that kind of self-protective instinct, and actually, as you say, go out of the comfort zone and realize that actually you can be comfortable there, and that whatever happens in that space, you can use it and alchemize it and catalyze it, and however it goes, and that's having that faith that we can. And I can see you're setting people up to succeed. But I guess it's how we define success, isn't it, as well?
Yes. And with regards to the fear of failure, as you said, it's a tribal, it's most probably, a very DNA from way back. But if you think about it, usually you're the only one on the stage, and then you've got everybody looking at you. All the attention is on you. So it might be sort of I have heard people say, I haven't researched it too much, but it's that the amygdala kicking in, like the survival. You're in danger. You're very vulnerable. You have no cover to duck under. And so I think that can kick in with people. And that's where the heart starts pounding, the mouth goes dry, and the adrenaline's pumping through their body. But in terms of if you practice, that's fine. But I think there's a big thing for me about letting go. I can talk about that a bit later, because I know we're talking about confidence and fear of failure and perfectionism. But the fear of failure is to knowing that whatever comes up, you actually will be able to do. You will be able to deal with it. You really will. Even if it's Q&A and someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, if you're not trying to look good or not trying to look bad, you'll just say in the moment. It's really about, I want to get onto the whole letting go, listening to that internal guide that will tell you, actually, I don't know the answer to that question. Great question. Come see me afterwards and I'll find the answer for you. It's just in that moment, just being okay with not being perfect, not knowing everything. How can you know everything?
Yes, we put so much pressure on ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, I don't know everything there is to know about public speaking. I feel like I still only know a fraction. There's still so, same with singing, there's so much to still discover and learn. So I feel that fear of failure and perfectionism are kind of the killers of people stepping forward. So once again, you can let it go. You're not perfect, because everyone's perfect, but I don't know if anyone has ever delivered a perfect presentation. It might seem like that to you, but to us, the professional speakers, I'm always doing something that doesn't work. Sometimes the audience will know it, and sometimes I'll just know it. But I've even forgotten where I was, and I what was I saying? And they go, oh, okay. I don't make it a big thing that I'm a human being and I'm not perfect.
Yes. And I think people relate to that, don't they?
Yeah, the audience is a reflection of you. So that's a big writer downer for anyone who's listening. The audience is a reflection of you. So if you clam up, if you get all panicky because the slide's not working or you've forgotten the next thing, the audience is going to feel it consciously and unconsciously, because it's all energy exchange. So I'm super, super playful. That's kind of my go-to, high energy and really playful. If I make a mistake, I'm the first person to laugh at myself. If, you know, if it's an obvious one. And guess what that gives the audience the permission to do?
Yeah.
Laugh out loud, because they're laughing internally.
Yes.
I just give them permission to do it out loud. Join me having a laugh.
Yes. Yes. And I think everyone loves that. I think everyone loves it when that's authenticity as well, isn't it? Because, you know, as you say, we're all human. And actually, I mean, and that's why we see, I mean, how many hits do blooper videos get? They get masses of hits, don't they? Because everyone loves seeing the humanity of people, not in a cruel way, not because we really want to laugh at each other in a cruel way, but just because it's our shared humanity, and everybody makes a blooper. And actually, sometimes bloopers, I've noticed anyway, or mistakes, sometimes they can lead you off on another tangent, or they can make a connection with an audience that wasn't there perhaps, or they break the ice, or something happens in that moment. If you use it well, it can be a real moment of actually really connecting with everyone in the room and having a laugh, as you say. So that's just, yeah, it's being okay with it, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
really being okay.
exactly. I've totally let go. I let go when I present. Um, it's a bit of a surrender thing.
Yeah, and say more about that, because that's for me a very magical part. I think of any kind of performance, and I relate to it from a singing point of view. I feel like when I'm really singing, I have let go, I'm surrendered, I'm almost being sung rather than I am singing, if that makes
Ooh,
sense.
I
And
love that.
yeah.
Hadn't heard that before, being sung.
Yeah, and I love that feeling when I feel like music is coming through me rather than
Yeah,
it's all about me. If I think it's all about me, then that's really just, I'm going to get really scared again. And those are all very self-fixated thoughts that we can go into. But if I let go and go, this is about music flowing through me, and as you say, that energetic exchange with the audience, and really being in the moment and going, this, I have no idea how this will go. I'm just going to be here with what I've got and see what happens and let the
yeah.
experience come through me, and let's play, let's have an adventure together. Then, yeah, magic can happen. But what are your tips for helping people to do that, to let go, or what helps you get in that flow space?
Yeah, so I have a couple of sort of techniques I use. The one that a lot of people use is breathing.
Mm,
And I find that even outside of speaking, if my head is really busy, and it's 5 p.m., it's traffic time in my head, just deep breathing helps me to quieten my mind, because now I'm focusing on my body, I'm focusing on my deep breathing, and you just naturally find your thoughts start to really quieten down and simmer down. So that's one thing I really do. And when I when I'm in that really calm space, the letting go is just trusting that all is well. An example of that will be a few weeks, I think it's about a month ago, I found that I was getting quite stressed, and I wasn't consciously aware of it, but suddenly I was gritting my teeth.
yeah.
Suddenly my teeth were gritted, and I was like, and then I'd release. And then suddenly I noticed that they were gritted, and then I released. So obviously I was feeling stressed about something that I created. Uh, and then I just thought, why am I stressed? Why am I trying to control everything where there's only a small percentage of things in the world that I actually can control? And they're all usually over here. And even some of these I can't really control. They're just working for me.
Mm,
And so I just, I'm very spiritual. I believe in God. I won't say I'm like a, practicing Christian, but I believe in the universe and God and energy and source and all of that. And I thought, why am I fighting against myself? Why am I? And I obviously I talk to a lot of people about public speaking and mindset, and I obviously talk about mindset as well. And I thought, my gosh, we seem to be the only thing on the earth that fights against itself. I don't see animals fighting against themselves internally, like, oh, love, the lion, the deer ran off. Oh, I'm a failure, love. I'm a failure. I know, go and get the deer tomorrow, doll. It's like, no, they just like, they didn't catch the deer. Okay, next, tomorrow, again and again. I know it's like, it might be obvious, but trees and plants, they do not fight against themselves. Why are we the same only species who fights against ourselves in our minds?
mm,
And I'm not saying that we should be a Buddhist monk at the side of the road, but there's definitely something in that they're able to ignite that inner peace. And from that inner peace, you quieten the mind, you can literally hear life guiding you.
Mm.
It's that intuition, it's the knocking, it's saying, do this next, go here next, speak to this person. But you can't if this is like, la, 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 me. So, I just remembered I need to surrender and just trust life is always for me in all areas of my life, even when it doesn't seem like it is. It is, because there's a valuable lesson I needed to learn. That's why I'm going through what I'm going through. So I always see it as a blessing when I go through things, and to trust that all is well, life's got my back, and just listen and row your boat gently down the stream. I don't know if you heard me sing that nursery rhyme, because it's such a great nursery rhyme. Row your boat gently, not hold on to the side of the banks. Don't just try and swim upstream. Go gently down the stream. Like life is gently down the stream, but we choose to have this internal battle, which then goes out and affects other people.
Yes.
Because what's going on inside of us. So I think the letting go, how it relates to public speaking is, when I've done my prep and practiced, if I need to practice, as soon as and I do another technique as well, but as soon as I'm like showtime, this, like you and the singing, I disappear. I don't go inside my head very much to have too many thoughts about myself. And that's the challenge that people do. They not that they're narcissists, but we think about ourselves while we're talking to other people.
Yes.
No, quieten that down and just trust the flow. Like if you know where you're going with your presentation, trust that you have everyone has if you're speaking on your area of expertise, you have so much you could share. Not just what's your key points or the presentation you've scripted for 20 minutes or an hour. You've got so much to share. Just have your bullet points and know that you can flow. Your brain's going to give you what you need to say, stories, metaphors. It will come up if you just release. That's a very long-winded thing to say about letting go.
Amazing, but it's a very deep topic, and thank you for sharing that. I love the row your boat, and what it reminds me of as well is, when we're children, I believe we are more in touch. We haven't been, of course, we haven't got, our heads are not so full of stuff, right? Because we haven't as yet learnt these kind of programs or takes on some of our social programming, let's say. And, I remember watching my nephew when he was learning to just go up and down a tiny step in his garden. And he was going backwards, forwards. I want to try it sideways. And of course he'd fall over. There'd be a bump, then a bit of tears. But no, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. And he wasn't judging himself. He wasn't sitting there going, oh no, I'm a failure. He just was getting back up, and I want to do this. I want to master getting up and down this step in every possible way I can. And it was amazing. It was such a lesson to me watching him. And so often as adults, we can be so impatient, either with children or with our own inner child, that wants to do that. It wants to go over things and learn things and just keep going. Like you say with the lion's just going to go out and get another deer. It's not going to go, get into all this head stuff about it. So it is, when we let go, then we're back in what I believe is like our innocence, in the sense of inner sense, and that's what we have as children, because we haven't got that interference so much. But I believe it's still there. And as you say, when we quieten everything down, the guidance is there, what to do next, what to say next. And then the creative sparks can come through us, can't they? And that inspiration.
Yeah, I really believe that when we release, we're one with everything. And that's where you're not just coming up with your wisdom, you're coming up with the wisdom of the universe. So it comes through you. So I think when I think about it, if you take on this concept, and for me, concepts, they're all made up. Yeah, I'd actually rather have the wisdom of the universe than just my own little wisdom. That 1% of 100 people is more powerful than 100% of yourself. Yeah, I'd definitely like to have 0.05% wisdom of the universe flowing through me.
Yes, absolutely. And that also comes from being with what's in the room. Like sometimes I've gone into like even choir rehearsals or whatever, and I thought, actually what I've brought, I need to change because something different is in the room right now, and I need to meet people where they are. So
Mm.
maybe I need to be more playful that day, or maybe I need to honor, maybe everyone's feeling sad, or maybe, whatever. So that it's a partnership with the audience, isn't it? And being spontaneous with what the audience. Do you have stories of fun things that have happened to you? Well, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. It was so fun. I remember I was doing a presentation and I had I think I was talking about what makes someone a great speaker. So I had all these pictures and they'd just turn over when I pressed the PowerPoint, the picture would turn over and the person's name and what they were synonymous for, Obama, passion, or the pause. And so I turned over the first one and I clicked and the second face turned over. And I said, oh, this is a bit like a game show. And the gentleman in the front row went, bring, when I turned it over. And I said, would you mind every time I clicked, make that noise? Because it's so cool. It really is like a game show. So he said, okay. So I did it and he went, bring. I did it and he went, bring. And then on about the fourth time, he went, bring. And he said, I feel like my credibility is going down every time I make that noise. And the whole room just burst out laughing. And I was like, okay, that's so fine. We can stop now. I think it was funny. It's so funny in the moment when you're there.
Yes.
And I think if you're scripted or if you're very inside your head, I'm not sure you just wouldn't have gone with that. Plus, I think I do a lot of interactions with the audience. Obviously, now we're all on Zoom, so it's much easier as well than when you're in a room. But even when I was, in person in a room, I would have people share, what do you share hearing, blah, 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 blah. And just, oh my gosh, people just come up with the most amazing things, sometimes really hilarious. And it just allows everybody to laugh. And we want emotions. We want to feel emotions in a presentation. So that's one of our games as a presenter, is to elicit emotions, because that's why we go to the movies. That's why we cry when people sing certain songs, or it has us happy because it's eliciting emotions. And that's what presenting does as well. That's why it's an art form. I just don't think people really see it like singing and acting. We know it's an art form, but when I say presenting as an art, people are like, oh, really? Yes.
I can see totally, and it really, really is. And I've learned so much from you, just being around you and watching and hearing, just how much artistry and creativity and heartfelt, wisdom you put into your work. And I've also just was thinking about that whole thing about how, when you've been in workshops, how one of your great gifts, I think, is to get everybody involved, so that everyone is in the conversation, especially when it's solving a problem or solving, and that's, I think you've got a great gift for that, of really drawing on what's in the room and what's in everybody there, which is so important, because then it becomes a shared experience. And
It does.
yeah,
I'm running a TEDx program, a 12-week program to get people on the TED Talk stage. And the idea is usually the hardest thing that people have to work through, because it really needs to be less than 15 words, really clear, specific. You're really articulate with, when I read that idea, I get it, not or sometimes I hear people's ideas and I'm a bit, and then sometimes I'm like, ooh, shivers, So and doing it by yourself is really challenging, as we know, coming up with your messaging or anything by yourself. Even one-to-one, it's great. But I love group, because we're in our group on Tuesday and people were sharing their idea and just how to articulate it. And everyone was coming up with alternative suggestions that now they could go away and go, actually, I like that bit, I like that bit. So it was such a group contribution. It was really amazing.
Yeah, that wonderful brainstorming and shared supportive idea sharing, and then that helps people then craft down into, what do I really want to say and what's really going to stand out. Absolutely. And where can people access that program if they want to come and be involved?
Oh, right. So there's a landing page, which I'm sure you'll put the link there. I believe you're going to catch me now. I'm not sure where the link is, but I think it's mindspeak.uk stroke. TED wait list or something like that.
You can send it to me and we'll put it up.
Yeah, but obviously they can keep in touch with me on social media, and I have a resources. So first and foremost, they might want to download a idea generation workbook. That's sometimes the first step, and so therefore they can find that at MindSpeak, one word, academy.com/resources, and you'll find a few downloadable workbooks, virtual brand story, and a TEDx idea generation. And then we will keep in touch, and I'll let you, well, the link I'm sure for the wait list will be underneath here.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I know you're very generous. Elaine makes these beautiful resources. They're always absolutely stunningly produced and very generous, so much content. So really recommend people going and tapping into the resource page on your website and getting involved in your programs, and because it's so empowering to what you're doing with everybody. And you touched on, when you talked a little bit about earlier about the difference between Zoom and being in person. And I just wanted to pick up on that, actually, because how has it been for you, this whole virtual world? I know you've, that word pivot, everyone's had to pivot, but, how's it been for you?
Yeah, I love that word, pivot. Every time someone says it, it reminds me of Chandler from Friends, when they're trying to put the settee. Do you remember that episode, up the hall? And he's going, pivot, pivot, pivot. No, if you would know it if you'd seen it, because anyone who's seen that, as soon as we hear pivot, we think of Ross. It's Ross from Friends. I think it's been fairly easy for I call not just speakers, but people who get paid to speak. They're at a certain level to pivot online, and it's pretty easy for me as well, because whether you're Instagram Live, Facebook, YouTube, now Clubhouse, we're using our voice. We know how to engage people. We know how to get them, to take some action, because that's part of it as well, the call to action. So it's been really good. But in terms of virtual, I really hadn't done much virtual pre-COVID. So jumping online and then delivering, I think it's that learning curve, like everybody has gone through with anything. And now I deliver at least once or twice a week. I deliver presentations for organizations. I do a lot in the government as well. There's an array of departments in the government, HMO, ministry, just so many. But it was so funny because on Clubhouse, we had a room. I host room under the MindSpeak Academy in Clubhouse. And we had a room, and it was virtual versus in person. Like, which one? The battle. It was battle of virtual and live in person. And it was funny because at the beginning of the room, the live in person had the vote, that had the floor. And I was definitely someone for virtual, because I like live. I really do love live, because I can come down into the audience, we can interact, it's just a different energy. But virtual, everybody's got a front row seat. I can see their name. I can connect with them on another level, and I see their name, they respond, people can ask questions. So I really like virtual as well. So anyway, virtual did eventually win the room. I think it was 8 votes to 5.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, a couple of things came up why it won. One, you don't have to keep on flying or travel. So the travel is the downside that people don't think about when they think of, oh yeah, I want to be a paid speaker. Well, a lot of times you have to travel. And the day before, and flights and accommodation, all of that. So after a while, that is not novel. After a while, it's like, it's a long time to be on a train. And secondly, someone said about saving the environment, because we're not flying around so much. And that just swayed about 3 of the people. They just went over to the other side. They're like, yeah, actually doing it for the environment is much better. But now people are doing hybrids. They're doing the 2.
That's right. We've all had to become very inventive. And it'd be really interesting, isn't it? I wonder, I suspect when we first all had to go virtual, and we were all really pretty shocked about being locked down, obviously, and it was pretty traumatic for everyone at that early stage. I don't suppose anyone would have voted for virtual at that time, but now, having gone through a year and a half of it, and seeing that we've learned things and that there are benefits, especially, as you said, environmentally. And I really haven't missed, the time spent commuting around and running around. Yeah, it's a really big thing to suddenly start factoring back into my life and how much time it takes, as I start going out again. So yeah, I really hear you on that. It's fascinating, isn't it? Fascinating. Who'd have thought we'd be saying that, and seeing that? Amazing. It's an ongoing adventure, isn't it? And thank you for everything you've shared. It's just, yeah, phenomenal. You've shared so many tips, and it's phenomenal to hear that you're that the virtual experience can be so positive, and that's another. And again, it helps with mindset, doesn't it? It helps us get over the thinking that, oh no, virtual this, virtual, actually it's can be just as enriching, and we can have these amazing, like that we're having now. We're having this conversation now that then we can share with other people all over the world potentially. That's amazing, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I feel it's virtual is an easier route into speaking than you suddenly being in front of an audience of 50, 80, 200 people, and you now need to deliver. I think it's just a bit safer. You're in your home environment. You can ask people to go to the chat box while you quickly check something. Whereas, yeah, when you're live and people are paying you, and they'll pay you virtually as well. On both cases, you need to really, really deliver. I'd say live is harder. Some people think virtual is harder. I think live is harder, because, yeah, people's full focus is on you. Virtual, their focus could be a bit on their phone. It could be a bit on the emails.
Yes.
Whereas live, no one's really going to be looking at their phone too much. So it's all on you at the front of the room. And the organizer's sitting at the back looking at you.
Yeah, there's no place to hide, is there? There's just you, and that's that, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And what are you looking forward to? Like, if we are, I know there's a big if at the moment, but if we are coming out, how do you see, what are you looking forward to, and how do you see it going forward? It sounds to me like you're going to be doing a mixture and some hybrid and some live, and I know I've seen you doing some live in schools recently and things. So, but how do you see yourself feeling your way out now?
Yeah, I think I have a live one in September. That's kind of one of my first live ones that's been booked. I haven't done hybrid yet, so that's going to be interesting, because I think there's I'm always on Clubhouse, so Come and Fan Me, and I speak to a guy called Fanzo, and he does a lot of hybrids in the US. US is a big market with regards to presenting, and there's lots of things you have to factor of where the cameras are, which, are you talking to the audience, are you talking to the cameras, or is the camera positioned as if you're talking to the audience? I think there's lots of things to work out with the hybrid. It's not as easy as it looks, but I would feel for the event organizers, if anything, they can have more people attend, because many people won't have to travel, which is a challenge. That's why some people don't go to events, because they have to travel, and kids and all of that. So I think it's the best of both worlds when hybrid really starts to take off.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it can be inclusive as well of people that might have access issues, or
Yeah.
might not be able to get around in the same way. So, yeah, wow, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all transpires, isn't it, really?
Or what's next? Suddenly another curveball.
Well, quite. Yeah, we just don't know, do we? We just don't
No.
know. So we just have to be in that place of let go and surrender, really, that we talked about.
Yeah,
Indeed.
people are, when I do the mindset section, that, yeah, I can control the future. Like, really? Brexit, coronavirus, do you really think we can? We feel we can, and we do plan, and maybe some of the time it goes the way we want, but we cannot control the future, because it's always out there. It's tomorrow or the next day, so we can only control right now.
Absolutely, just one day at a time. That's been my mantra through this whole thing. One day at a time. One day at a time, Katie. And if you wanted to leave people with one of your, I know you call them golden nuggets of wisdom, to go out on, as we do go through this time, there is a lot of uncertainty, and that is unsettling for people. And there is and for those who perhaps are thinking after this, oh, I might try some public speaking, but they're still feeling, what would be your golden nugget for people navigating this time and perhaps thinking they might, just go over the edge with some public speaking?
Yeah. I would say really get in touch with your why, like your heart center. What is it that's driving you? And if it's money, that's fine. It just get and I always saw money as is it's a route to something. Is it a route to financial freedom? Is it a route to not having to work again? But really get in touch with your why. It might be to transform people's lives because you have an area of expertise and it's going to make a huge difference. But it is your North Star, because I think in any industry, and this is like $1 billion industry, the speaking industry, there are times where it's gonna be hard, and you might want to give up or question, why did I do this in the first place? Where you might do a presentation that really didn't go the way you wanted it to go. But when you focus on something bigger than yourself, like transforming, that's why I like the TEDx as well, because that is about an idea worth spreading. It is about transforming a community, a group of people, or a society or the world. And that's bigger than you. You are just tiny. So find your why and make your why bigger than yourself. And when you're invited to speak, like, set those intentions. I'm going to deliver, or I'm going to speak 10 times this year, or I'm going to train myself to deliver a speech, or I work with people one-on-one and we do 12 sessions to get them out there with a really clear and powerful presentation that they feel confident to deliver to their specific audience. So get in touch with your why. Know that you've gone through whatever you've gone through for a reason, and part of that reason is possibly that you're there to make a huge difference in somebody else's life. They're waiting to hear from you, just like someone on this listening to this podcast is waiting to hear from Katie, or waiting to hear from me or Katie's guest. So you have something very unique inside of you, and your voice you were given a voice for a reason, and a message. If you have a message and you have a story, and go out and share it, and really know that you'll make a huge difference, not only in somebody else's life, but it also makes a difference. It transforms you as well.
Absolutely. Wow, that was awesome. Thank you. Know your why and share your voice from that amazing place of making a difference in the world. Wow. And that's one of the things that first attracted me to your work, Elaine, because I could see that your why shines through, and that your commitment to really serving people and making a huge difference. And you're doing that, and it shines through. And I'm sure many people listening, again, please head over to MindSpeakAcademy.com to be part of Elaine's community, because just doing phenomenal work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us and share that with us. And I just want to echo that encouragement, because that's really why I started this podcast, was to say, come on, we can change our world with our voices, whether that's personally or for each other, we can. And it all starts with ourselves, and just giving ourselves the self-love and the self-encouragement to say, yes, you can do it. And knowing that there's there can be a really big purpose for it, and wonderful things can come of it. Beautiful, magical things.
Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge you, Katie, for just being such a champion for other people. You're a huge example of what's possible. You gather choirs, you go into all these amazing places, you inspire people. You're an incredible energy source of positivity and what's possible in the world. And this podcast and all the things you're up to get people to be healed as well through sharing their voice. So I really want to acknowledge you for everything you're doing, and for having me on your podcast.
Oh, wow. Well, it's just an honor. Thank you that you're here. And and I think when you have people to walk alongside you on the journey, Whether it's your trainers, your mentors, your friends, your family, these people become the magic people in our lives, and you're a magic person. My last guest, Naveen, talked about that. He was talking about everyone has magic people who, like, when you, as you said earlier on, where when you've decided something, the right people show up at the right time. And you showed up in my life a year ago, and I'm really, really, really so grateful that you've been a magic person in my life, and that we can, and you're being a magic person to so many people, and we can all be that magic person. It could be just someone you're standing next to in the bus stop that you're a magic person for. You just don't know. So if we just all let ourselves know our why and express our why, and let the magic come through us, surrender to it, it can take us on all sorts of adventures, can't it? So thank you for affirming me and seeing me. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. I have a phrase I've started to use, which is be unapologetically you. Just be you.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, and I like that one. Oscar Wilde said, just be you, everybody else is taken.
Yes. Yeah.
But absolutely unapologetically, because who else can you be at the end of the day? So yeah. Well, thank you for being you, Elaine. Thank you so much for all the generosity and of the wisdom you've shared with us today. And I will make sure your links are there for everybody to come and find your amazing resources and courses and get involved. And thank you again for sharing your wisdom. And thank you to everyone who's listened. We really appreciate you tuning in. And I'll be back again with another episode very soon. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you again to my special guest, Elaine, and look forward to seeing the next part of the adventure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.